right, thanks so much for being here this evening. Before we jump in, a couple of just announcements. If you are here for Lily's class, make sure you I need to see your eyeballs, all right, so I can get your name on the list, all right? Most of you, I think I know, for me, I've caught you. If you're here for Professor Penner, there's a QR code in the back for you to scan for your attendance tonight, okay? So those are some of the important announcements that you need for those of you who are here for class, all right? I think with Professor Enzi, you are writing a paper. I don't think you have to check in with me. All right? All right, but before we jump into this evening, I've asked Professor Jost to come for just a minute and share a little bit of information with you about an upcoming trip. So, Craig, will you give us some information?
Thank you. This is me, Carson Center for Global Engagement. That means trips, and I want to talk to you about Portugal. We've got a trip with the business department going to Portugal. We went for kind of an exploratory trip last October. Not this last October, before that. Great experience, and we kind of set up the trip, and it's going to be an amazing trip to see some different models of business in the intercultural, international scheme, how maybe even international organizations work across the board, and also see some innovative entrepreneurial opportunities. And also, there's a internship that's connected with it. So if you're interested in a business internship on the international level, talk to Melinda or me, and we'll get you pipelined. And it's a competitive piece, so it's not. We only have, I think, 2 or 3 people that can go, but we'd love to see a lot of applications for that. So, really quick, most of the people, especially students, would say one of the biggest things that I'd love to go on a trip, but it's going to cost me too much. First of all, we are in contact with some donors that are going to help us out to make it more accessible. And we also, I think the business department is also doing some sweat equity, so I'm all about that if you're in business. Put in a little elbow grease and you'll get some funds, and plus there's scholarships available. So if you're telling me that finance is your main issue of not going, it's really not an issue. And I could talk to, there's numerous people here that have gone on international trips and say it's well worth whatever you have to pay for it. It's well worth it 10 times fold. Your experience going on those trips. You might have an anxiety about, hey, I don't know any of the people that are going with me. It's a great opportunity to make new friends and to branch out. Another thing is you might say, well, I have to focus on my career. I've got to work. I've got to make up some money. Well, I think the trip is actually, I think, 10 days long, and it's right after the end of school, so it really hooks on. I know most of you aren't going to go right into work on a job unless you've got it set up ahead of time. Most of it take a week or 2 just to kind of lay low and relax. Lay low in Portugal. What a great way to go. If you have any questions, if you want to kind of kick this around more, definitely look into it. Pray about it as well, because it's also an opportunity to see what God's doing in marketplace ministry. So it's a well-planned trip, and it's well worth the investment of your time. But thanks. Thank you back to Linda.
All right, we would love to have you go to Portugal with us. All right. This evening, it is an honor to have our next Nachtigall lecture series speaker. Before I introduce Jake, I want to give credit to the Nachtigall family. Dean and his wife, Carol, provide us the opportunity to have the Nachtigall lecture series. We're very appreciative of their family and the funds that they provide, which allow us to bring speakers to campus for you to learn about entrepreneurship and to speak and to pour into you about questions you have about business, entrepreneurship, and just life. So very thankful for the Nachtigall family, what they do to support that. This evening, we have a privilege. You are so privileged to have Jake Schenk on campus with us. It's been fun to walk around campus with him today and have him reconnect with people on campus. Lots of people grabbing him and hugging him and welcoming him back on campus. Jake is a Tabor alum. Went to school here, graduated in 2006. He spent 10 years after leaving Tabor, splitting time between coaching football and various ministries. In 2016, Jake was hired as the general manager of the brand new business in Branson, Missouri called Fritz Adventure. That's where I met you. You gave my family a free pass. You probably don't remember that. Chris Rangel walked in and said, I know you. His business was the Small Business of the Year in 2018 and Best Business Extreme Adventures Award. In 2019, Jake was inducted into the Tabor College Athletics Hall of Fame, and his contributions to the football team during his days of playing here at Tabor College. Jake currently is the owner and operator of a Chick-fil-A, which we all love, okay, in St. Joe, Missouri, and he began his business at a Chick-fil-A in Branson. While hesitant at first, he quickly fell in love with the brand, and after 2 months working at the restaurant, decided to pursue restaurant ownership as part of a lifelong career. Jake was selected to become an owner and operator of his store in March of 2022. He's married to a Tabor alum, and they have 2 young boys together. And so please help me in welcoming Jake Schenk.
Well, while she's doing that, getting that ready, I just want to say, one, it is really, truly an honor and a privilege to be back. Graduated 2006 from here with a health and physical education and a biblical and religious studies degree. And so for me to be here in the Nachtigall lecture series, it is an honor. So thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here. And Dr. Rangel, thank you for the invite. And Dr. Jansen, thank you for the hospitality today and giving of your time. And so, one, today my hope is very simple. I'll be honest with you. I never took one business class in my life. And so I'm not here to tell you what I know about business because that's not really, I feel like, my purpose. And so what my hope and my encouragement is today is that you can be encouraged and also challenged through my story and just of God's faithfulness to me through every step of the way. And so bear with me. There's going to be probably a lot of words I'm going to be speaking. I'm going to get tired of hearing myself speak. But I also like interaction. And so at some point I'll probably ask questions and would love participation. And so just excited to share with you today and just hopeful that God will continue to work in your life as he did kind of in my time here at Tabor. It's a special place. And so what I love, some of my best friends, the guys that I got to go to school with and continue to build relationships with are here today. And that's a special thing. And so there's so many more of you that, again, I see that were here. And again, it's just another notion of God's faithfulness, because those that knew me back in college are probably wondering, like, how did he end up here speaking in front of us today? So I would love to pray before we begin, and then we'll jump in and really kind of just share my story with you tonight, kind of where I've been and what I've been doing, and honestly how God, I feel like, has directed my steps. Would you pray with me? Father, thank you, Lord, for today. Thank you for Tabor College, for their heart to be pursuers of you. And Lord, I pray, Father, for the student body. I pray for the students here. Lord, that you would pursue them hard. Father, that you would continue to pursue them until they relent. Father, and allow you in their lives. Lord, that's my prayer. And I pray tonight, Father, that you would speak through me, the story, and Lord, just allow you to be seen through that, your faithfulness, and how you operate, God. May you receive the glory. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. All right, so tonight's kind of theme is going to be based off of Psalm 119, 105. Your word is a lamp for my feet and a light to my path. And so I think honestly of no better verse kind of that encapsulates kind of my journey. And really my hope for you at the end is that you would see the importance and understand the value of allowing allowing God's word to be the light for you. Again, this is a fun time. I love the college age. I love, because here's the reality is you are figuring out one, I think it's an important piece of who you are and why you are here. I think that's part of the college process, to be honest with you. That God has a specific, special plan for you, and I believe that. And so part of your job is to find that out, to pursue Him, and for Him to reveal the next step in your life. And that's really the hope tonight. And so in doing so, my hope is that I can share some of my story. But with everything that I do, to be honest, everything that I've accomplished, there's no greater accomplishment than getting Miss Audra to say yes to me in marriage. There's no joke about that. So Audra was a volleyball player here at Tabor. She graduated in 2010. I had the privilege of meeting her at a friend's wedding. So guys, make friends, go to weddings. You never know what's going to happen. And so she had the opportunity to play volleyball with a lady here at Tabor, and I was a year removed, and got the opportunity to play football with the groom. And so we met at a wedding in Nebraska. She was, anybody know Carson Greenhaw? There you go. So hometown kid that ended up marrying a Cornhusker, and I am extremely grateful for that. And so I got to meet Audra there. We have two boys, Cohen and Callan. Cohen is 12, he's in 6th grade. This is a picture that's probably a year or two old. Cohen is in 6th grade and Callan is in 2nd grade. And so he's 7. And so what I love about them and what I am grateful for, honestly, Audra, is her steadfastness in this journey. And so I wouldn't be here without her. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without her love and support. And how she has led our family and really been a leader with our boys and with me, continuing to spur me on. And so super grateful for them. And so that's going to be up because I think that picture also tells you a little bit about who we are. We love to have fun. We love to adventure. And so whatever it is doing, we feel like it's worth having fun if you're going to do it. So hopefully tonight will be fun for you. But my story begins in small town Kansas. Anybody know of Smith Center, Kansas? Okay, small town population of probably right now about 1,800. And so there wasn't a whole lot to do. My dad is a farmer. My mom ran a daycare for 20 years. I was the youngest of 4 boys. And so the only thing to do in Smith Center, to be honest with you, was probably to play football. And so that's what my hometown is known for. At one point in time, my hometown had the longest winning streak in the nation of 79 straight games. And so that's kind of a little bit kind of just of my background. Youngest of the 4 boys, so I grew up watching them play and wanting to be them and wanting to be involved in football. And so I had the privilege to play in high school, and then got recruited to come here to Tabor. And best decision that honestly that I made because of the people that I got to meet and just the special times that we had together. Understanding and trying to figure out what our roles in this life is. And so came to Tabor, played 4 years, loved it. Had an opportunity to be on some great teams. We finished with 11-1, 10-1 our senior year. And so our only loss that year was to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And it just so happens that year that the head coach of Sioux Falls during that year is actually now the head coach at the University of Alabama. And so Kalen DeBoer was the head coach at Sioux Falls when we got beat. And so that was my last kind of college experience. And I loved football, and that's kind of really what I anticipated doing, was being involved with football the rest of my life. And so after graduation, I honestly planned on being here at Tabor and staying for another year to help out and coach. And that was kind of the plan as things kind of progressed. And I get into the summer of after my senior year. Honestly, just didn't have a peace about that was the right place for me. And And so my hope is kind of with every decision, my number one thing, and I didn't always do great at this, but was to try to present that before the Lord and say, well, God, is this something that is an opportunity for me, or is it a distraction? And so that was kind of my process. And at that point in time, didn't feel like that was the right place. So I ended up heading to another college. My brother was a coach at, and it was Greenville University in Greenville, Illinois, just outside of St. Louis, 45 minutes. And so I had the privilege, I coached there, coached outside linebackers there, loved it. This is what I kind of thought I was meant to do. I was surrounded by godly coaches and men that were pouring into me and helping me become a better man, helping me become a better husband. And so that's what I wanted to do. And it just so happens, again, I believe God directs our steps. Right? We can plan, but God directs our steps. And so that was my plan. But just so happens that season, my first season there, I get a call from two of my close friends here at Tabor, Lee Waldron, and if anybody knows that name, and then Erica Howdy, if anybody knows that name. They were planning on going on this mission trip called Trek. And so they said, hey, Jake, we think you should go with us on this trip. And I am like, nope, I'm not going. That is not where, I feel like God, that's not where I wanted to be. That wasn't part of my plan. And I said, oh, let me think about it. And so hung up. And just so happens that they're pretty persistent, and I'm grateful for that. But they called me again or texted me again and said, hey, I think you should really consider it. You should pray about it. And so as you think about it, and be careful, again, if you say that you're going to pray about something, be careful of what actually comes out of what God's going to ask you to do. And so it ended up that if I said, yes, I'll pray about it, fine. Ended up praying about it, and like, okay, God, tell me no, that's fine. Like, we'll move on. I'll keep on doing my dream. And just so happens, I get done praying, open up my Bible. The first verse that I see when I open up my Bible is Isaiah 52:7. And it says something along the lines of this. Blessed are the feet on the mountains of those who bring good news. And I'm like, ooh, God, that's a good verse. Like, maybe you're trying to tell me something. And I was like, nope, still no. And so close Bible and continue to do my thing. And Phil, again, week goes by or so, and Phil an urge to, hey, you need to pray about this again. And so I ended up praying, getting in the Bible, reading, and finishing up kind of reading, and felt like, you know what, Jake, you should continue to read. Like, that was the prompt, whatever. And so reading through the Old Testament at the time, and the next book was a book called Nahum. Anybody read Nahum? Yeah, it's not a super popular book. And so end up reading the first chapter of Nahum, and Nahum 1:15, I believe, says something very similar, where it's talking about blessed are the feet of those who bring good news. And so for me, again, I'm at a conundrum where when I think I'm living my dream, and at some point I feel like God is calling me to leave it and go somewhere else. And so I ended up saying yes, and signed up for a Trek program, which is a 6-month missions program through MB Mission, and spent 3 months training in the Vancouver area. Remind me of the town. Abbotsford. We're primarily based out of Abbotsford, British Columbia. If you ever get an opportunity to go to British Columbia, it is probably one of my favorite places to ever visit. And so it's beautiful, beautiful country. So spent time there, 3 months, and then I had the opportunity to lead a team of 4 to Egypt. And so I spent 3 months in Egypt leading a team, and we partnered with a local missionary there. And we really honestly just encouraged kind of the local Christian group. And so, to be honest, we kind of traveled up and down the Nile area, because that's where the population was. Got to see a lot of sights, but got to be in these churches and continue just to hopefully encourage the body of believers. And so we followed a television evangelist that was there, He was broadcasted all over the Middle East at the time. And so it was an extremely humbling experience. One, because I couldn't communicate. I don't know Arabic. And it was just, the culture was completely different. It's not like anything we have here. But what was the same was no matter who you met, no matter if it was a kid or an adult, or everybody understood the communication of love and attention and care. And so that was pretty evident on the journey there. And so, long story short, spent some time there. I was going to go visit my cousin. My cousin was also involved in missionary work, and he was spending time in Amman, Jordan. And so I thought, well, since I'm already in Egypt, he's in Jordan, I'll never be back. He asked me to come visit him. So I booked a plane ticket, ended up flying to Amman, Jordan, got to spend a couple days with him, and then traveled back. And in 2 weeks, we were going to fly home, 2-3 weeks, we were going to fly home and debrief from our mission trip. And so that was the plan. So again, I step on the plane in Amman, Jordan, to fly back to Cairo. I get to Cairo, they scan my passport, and they say, excuse me, sir, why don't you stand over here? And I'm like, oh, what's going on? Honestly, at this point in time, things just took a long time in that country, so I just didn't think much of it. Thought that was just something that I was going to have to wait, so it was really, honestly, I feel like the Lord was just working on my patience, because obviously I needed to work on that. And so, spend time there, and then about an hour later, they tell me, one, I'm not allowed back in the country, and that essentially I'm going to be held overnight, and we'll have to find a way kind of back to Jordan. And so I get taken to a part of the airport where essentially I remember it was kind of a hallway like this down the aisle, and then it was perpendicular. On the right side were bunk beds with a window, and the window had bars. And then the other side was like offices where security guards were. And so I got to spend a night in kind of the airport jail. I don't know what else you call it. And in the morning, they took 25 people or so out in handcuffs. And kind of just crazy. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, God, what is going on? Like, why am I here? I felt like you wanted me to go to Jordan to encourage my cousin. Like, why is this happening? And so, honestly, just like there was a point in the night, it was the middle of the night, got super frustrated. The security guards were there and speaking in English. They were communicating with other guests that were there and essentially talked about, hey, we don't know why you're here, and they're talking in English. And essentially, there was just I was getting frustrated because they were treating people pretty wrong, in my opinion. They were mocking people, and there were a couple of ladies that were, I think from South America, speaking Portuguese, I believe, to them, and they were like, no, we only speak Arabic. But they said it in English, and then these ladies, oh, you speak English, so we can speak English. So they were talking to them as well, and they said, no, only Arabic. And then they turned to their friends, and they said something, and they all laughed. And that, for me, was the last straw. And I stood up, and I said, no. I said, you do speak English, otherwise you wouldn't be here. And at that point in time, I realized, like, Jake, you are in a foreign country. You don't know anybody. You're kind of put away, so, like, just you need to cool yourself. And so, again, the rest of the night, again, like, went to go lay down in the bunks that they had. Finally woke up in the morning, they switched guards, finally found out that I was supposed to fly back to Jordan, that I had to buy another ticket. And again, just God's faithfulness. My cousin gave me cash because he wanted to help for my ticket when I came there. And the ticket cost was $50 short of what he gave me. And I had $50 extra dollars. Otherwise, I don't know if I would have been able to afford the ticket, to be honest with you. And so, found out I was flying back to Jordan and ended up sitting down and having conversations with people there. And just so happens that that was kind of one of the first times I had interactions with the Muslim population, just because most of our time was involved with the believers in Egypt. And the church. And so had conversations talking about kind of what they believe about Christianity, and just had opportunities to talk about Islam and what that meant. And so at some point pulled out my Bible and was saying, hey, this is what Jesus said. And they were like, hey, what are those red words? And I'm like, oh, well, that's what Jesus, anything that was red is what Jesus had said. And the guy that I was sitting by was like, oh, let me see that. And so as soon as I hand him the Bible, the guys at the security desk go, oh, your flight's here. I thought they were standing up because I was going to get in trouble. And so I think, honestly, the whole purpose of that trip was for me to be able to give that guy, I don't know his name, I don't even know what he looks like, but for me to be able to hand the Word of God to this individual. And he was like, oh, well, take your Bible. I said, no, you keep it. And so I ended up then flying back to Jordan and then back to Vancouver from there. But again, things didn't go as planned, and God had to redirect and redirect my steps. So after I got back, again, I didn't feel like I was called. I feel like God was actually like, hey, Jake, you have made football kind of an idol in your life. Like, you need to give that up. That's been your identity for a long time. Like, your identity needs to be in me. Because here's the reality is, no matter what you put your identity in, one day it's going to fade away. My identity was in football. I was a football player. I was a football coach. That's what I grew up. That's what I wanted to do. But at some point, that's going to fade away. And what I realized, the only thing in this life that's not going to fade away is if you put your identity in Jesus Christ. Of who He says you are, and what you've been called to do. And so I felt like that was the call. I needed to give up football, and so I did. I went in the next year. But just so happens that the same summer I came back from Trek, I met Audra at the wedding. And so we ended up dating long distance. She was in college here at Tabor, and I was in Norman, Oklahoma. I spent a year working with a ministry there called K-Life to help start a chapter of K-Life, which is a youth discipleship ministry. So did that for a year. We got engaged, and I felt like the Lord saying, hey, you need to go back to Tabor. And had an opportunity then to coach while she finished up school. And so we got married in the middle of her junior year. She played volleyball, was a biology major here. And so I coached football for another 2 years. Soon, kind of after the 2 years of coaching, I had an opportunity and a job offer back at Greenville College. My kind of life, honestly, is kind of a ping pong, to be honest with you. So you'll see here in a little bit. But went back to Greenville for 2 years and was a defensive coordinator there for 2 years. Loved it. We had the opportunity to be conference champions my first year. Second year, we played in a bowl game and just had a lot of fun. But at the same point, I was like, okay, I got football, it's back. And then all of a sudden, I felt like the Lord was saying, no, like I've only given you football while I've prepared you for something else. And now's the time to go do something else. And so ended up that I resigned. We didn't have a place to live. We didn't have a job, but we felt called back, honestly, to Hillsboro and to Tabor College. And so we moved back on faith, found out after we committed to move and resign from our jobs, found out that we were pregnant. So I am moving 2 states, no job, no place to live, no insurance, and have a new baby on the way. And again, God's faithfulness through it all. Again, there's many people here. One, we had the opportunity, I don't know if you, Randy and Lindy Weens, they're not here tonight, but they were a couple that we had. They really honestly blessed us. They let us stay in their little cottage. And so, I walked around town, to be honest with you, at some point, and knocked on business doors and asked if they needed help. One of those businesses was Elcon Electric. Anybody know Elcon in town? They're a commercial electric company. I knocked on the door and I said, hey, I'm looking for a job. Do you have one? They said, do you have any experience? And I said, no. But I'm a hard worker. I think they said, you're hired. And so I spent 3 months, I volunteered, I also coached wrestling and substitute taught at the high school, but spent 3 months, again, finding a way, because I felt like this is where the Lord called us. And it just so happens, 3 months later, there was a position here on campus for the director of campus ministries that opened up. And I applied and got the position and started essentially the end of July was kind of when I got essentially signed the contract. So insurance officially started in August. And we had our son August 27th. And so, again, just God's faithfulness through it all, if we're willing to go and step and make the next step. So I was here for 2 years, loved my time, got opportunities to meet guys like Mike during that time. And so, but again, kind of felt like, hey, this is where I'm supposed to be. Then all of a sudden, no, my position was cut to part-time. And so we had to figure out what we were going to do. And so, again, just kind of the ping pong effect. We were bounced back. We ended up going back to K-Life Ministries, which I was a part of in Norman, Oklahoma for a year. And so lived in Branson, Missouri. That's where we resided for 6 years. 2 of those years was I was a regional director with K-Life Ministries. And so I oversaw different chapters of K-Life. K-Life is a ministry called, it's similar to Young Life. Anybody know what Young Life is? Essentially, it's pretty much the same thing as K-Life. And so spent 2 years in Branson doing that. I would travel and oversee chapters of K-Life in Arkansas, Florida, Jacksonville, Orlando, and then Atlanta, Georgia. And those were kind of my territories. And so I spent a lot of time traveling, doing that. And really honestly felt like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. I love it. Wasn't looking for anything. 2 years in, got a random call from a guy that I didn't even know. But he had a friend. We had mutual friends. And he said, hey, I'm looking for someone to help me run my business. He said, your name came up. And he said, so-and-so thought I should just give you a call. And so I was like, man, hey, thank you. I'm honored that you would call me, but I'm not interested. And he said, whoa, at least would you come by and look at the facility, come and look at it. I said, okay. And so ended up that Audra and I went and checked out this new business, and it was called Fritz's Adventure. It's an indoor adventure park. It's a really, really cool place. It's honestly one of a kind, and they're building another one now in the Colony, Texas area. But my first kind of interaction was like, no, I'm finally where I'm at. I don't want to transition. But the more we talked to him, we fell in love with the idea of the business. And their heart was that they wanted to create an environment and build a team around opportunities for families to put these things down. It's in my back pocket. There you go. To put these down and to engage in relationship through adventure. And that was the mission. And my wife and I were like, we're on board. We can do that. So for 3 years, I got to be the general manager of a startup business. Again, no business degree, no business classes. Again, I feel like, again, just a guy that is trying to step and make the next step and be faithful with that. And so, so happened that, again, first year we opened up, second year, third year, first 2 years we were, one of the years we were Small Business of the Year winner. Second year we were, the Extreme Adventure Award for Branson. And so I was rubbing shoulders, honestly, with a lot of the higher business people in town as the new and exciting business. And so I was a general manager and loved it. So I went and helped build the brand. I traveled across the nation and kind of helped build the brand of Chick-fil-A and invited groups to come visit our facility and to help kind of build that. And so at the same time, I'm putting in probably 70 hours a week, exhausted, got a new baby at home, and honestly was miserable. Life was good. I was being paid more than I ever had been. But I was probably the worst shape I'd ever been in physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And really just was like, we've got to figure out what we need to do. So 3 years in, honestly was just burned out. And felt like, Lord, we need some clarity. Should we stay? Should we go? And really, Lord, I prayed for clarity. And again, Lord provided clarity. And it was through tough situations. And so Lord provided clarity. We stepped away. Again, not having anything in place. Got a family of 4 now. We bought a house. And we're living in Branson. And I'm stepping away because I feel like the Lord led us to that. And that I trusted Him to provide. And so, ended up that we were like thinking through my plan. Again, my plan was going to move back to Kansas, get close to family, and coach football again. Kind of felt like Peter. Or after Jesus left, what did Peter go do? Went back fishing. He went back to the nets. And like, that's just what I knew. And so that was my plan. And just so happens that a friend of mine from Branson, he was the local owner and operator of the Chick-fil-A in town. And he said, hey, why don't you come work for me? And I'm like, come on. Like, fast food, like I'm not doing that. It's never part of my plan. Like I don't want to be working at fast food. Can't make a career out of that. That's kind of was my mentality. But I said, well, I needed something to get me from December to May, because I had a kid that was in school, and we weren't going to move until the end of school year. So I said yes. And so I went in Chick-fil-A working as just a team member and trying to provide for a family of 4 on that. And so we knew that was a big step, so we ended up putting our house up for sale, knowing that was our biggest expense, and thought, you know what, it'll kind of 2 months, 3 months, maybe we'll be able to sell it. The house sold within 24 hours. Again, God's provision of us taking the step. And so now it's like, okay, what am I doing? Well, I went from making 70 plus a year as a GM to now I'm making $13 an hour as a team member. And I'm getting trained even better by high school kids. And I remember a conversation I told the class today, maybe it was class, I don't know. But there was a conversation with a 15-year-old that I'll always remember. And we're working the night shift, and we're sitting at the register, and I'm trying to be cordial and start a conversation with a 15-year-old as a 36-year-old, 20-year difference. And, just trying to start conversations. We talk, then all of a sudden guests come in, we serve the guests, and then he tries to re-engage in the conversation and ask me, he says, so, is this your first time job too? Is this your first job? And I'm like, oh, no. And I'm like, my heart sunk because I'm like, what am I doing? I got a family at home. What am I doing? And so, ends up though, kind of through those tough times, it was extremely humbling. I really believe that service is an honor. And so I would pray for multiple days in a row as I got out of my vehicle to walk in that facility and pump myself up by saying, Jake, serving is an honor. Because that's what I was signed up to do. Again, I signed up for the food service industry, and by definition, I'm working for the benefit of somebody else. And that was tough for me, because as an athlete, as a coach and everything, when I put in the effort, when I put in the work before, I benefited from that. And that was extremely tough to swallow. Now that my work, my effort, my energy is going to someone else. And I didn't know didn't really compute in my brain very well. And so, what I also found out though, that I was coming home after those days working at Chick-fil-A, and I was more engaged as a dad. I was more engaged as a husband. And my wife, Audra, was even like, well, what's going on? What have you been doing? Because you're coming home and you're full of life. And I realized quickly within the 2 months of being there that my bucket was being filled by getting to serve and bless people with good food. And I learned that I'm a lot like my mom. So my mom is my hero. I lost her about 2 months ago. And lost her to a battle of cancer. Strongest woman I know. She's my hero. But my mom was known in town as someone that just loved blessing people with food. Like, she would find out your favorite item and she would bring it over. She fed her 4 boys like she was feeding an army. Like, that was my mom, and she got joy from blessing people like that. And I realized in my time at Chick-fil-A, when I'm running orders, how many people have been to Chick-fil-A and crazy people are running an order to you? Like, it happens, right? Like, it's crazy. But for me, that was filling my bucket up, and I was getting energized by that. And so we quickly realized after conversation with the owner-operator there that essentially we were going to pursue this long-term, and asked him a lot of questions of like, hey, what does this look like if we pursue to become an owner-operator of Chick-fil-A? And so in January, and that was January 2020, was really my first day of Chick-fil-A. By April of 2020, I had applied to become an owner-operator in the process. And so it took about 2 years. The process was about 2 years, 23 months almost to the date when I applied to when I got selected to become the owner-operator of Chick-fil-A in St. Joseph, Missouri. And so love being there. It's a crazy place because, again, the reality is that we get an opportunity to bless people every day by our service. And so names are extremely important to me. And so I tell my team that I believe a person's name is one of their most valued possessions. I mean, think about it. Like, you want people to know you, right? Matt, we met today, right? And so, like, it's our innate desire. We want people to know us, and we want them to speak our name. And because I believe God has instilled that in us, to be people that are fully known, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and yet He fully loves us. And I think that's part of kind of the process. So we get to do a little bit of that every day in our restaurant. And my hope as people step foot on our property is that they feel welcomed, they feel valued, and they feel known. And so, man, I don't know what comes out of this today for you, but my hopes in closing are these things. Through my story, we always use, and when certain situations came up, we would pray, okay, and even with a Chick-fil-A opportunity, okay, God, is this an opportunity or is this a distraction? And honestly, if it's a distraction, even though it looks really good and then I want it, Lord, take it from me. And then that was our process, and we've tried as a family to incorporate that into our walk. The second thing I'd love to share is that, again, God is always faithful. No matter what you do, no matter where you are, He's faithful. And I think it's evident kind of through my story of God just stepping in and is waiting, honestly. I think a lot of times God is just waiting for us to be faithful to what He's given us. And so the reality is that I believe that God only reveals things in steps. The story of Saul. Who knows the story of Saul to Paul? Okay, Saul was a person, a man that persecuted the church. Jesus revealed Himself to him on the road, and Saul had scales kind of come over his eyes, couldn't see. And Saul was told, hey, go to this place, you're going to meet this guy, and then I will tell you what's next. At that point in time, Saul, he had an opportunity. Am I going to listen? I'm going to be faithful with that next step. Or am I not? And I believe, again, if he wasn't faithful, God's not going to reveal the next step. And so I think the question for us and for you guys is, what has God placed in your life right now? While you're at table. What has he placed in your life that he's asking you to be faithful with? When I was in your shoes, my mindset was, well, when I'm 30, I'm going to be doing this, this, and this, and I want to do that. I want to be a head coach. I want to do all of these things, and that was my plan. And God's saying, like, no, wait, Jake, you got to learn to be faithful now with what I've given you. And unless you are, you won't be prepared for what I have for you next. You think about David, the King David story. Unless David was faithful as a little shepherd boy, defending the flock from the lion and the bear, he would have never been prepared to be king. And so my challenge and encouragement to you is be faithful today because it matters for your tomorrow. And that is probably the most important thing I want you to know. And then lastly, make the most of unexpected opportunity. You never know what's going to happen. You never know what God's going to do. And you never know what the next step for you is. But I do know a way how you can find that out. And that's going back to that first verse of the word is a lamp unto my feet. And so can we get a light? Is there a way to get lights off here? Anybody we know? It may not work, but you get the illustration. Here's the reality. Like a lamp like this, a lantern, what does it do? It doesn't really show a whole lot. It doesn't show me, if this was completely dark, I would not be able to see what's on the back wall. But what does it show? It shows maybe my surroundings. It probably shows me the ability to take the next step. And I think that's the important piece, is that the reality is that God's word has got to be the lamp. It's got to be the lens that you look outside in this world and see, what am I supposed to do? It's not going to show you the whole thing. That's why it's called the lamp. It's just enough for you to take the next step. And once you do, guess what? I can see a little bit further. And God asking you to take the next step. And so that's my challenge, my encouragement to you guys. My hope, again, I am honored to be able to share that story with you, our story. But my hope is that you see God's faithfulness through that, and that you would continue to encourage you to take the next step in your life. So thank you guys. Appreciate it. I think we're going to open it up for some question and answer time. So any questions? Yes, sir, in the back, right here.
Hey, Jake.
Hey, what's your name?
I'm Nathaniel.
Nathaniel.
Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I do have a question. You said your identity was in football at one point in
Yeah.
time. What was the process of you transitioning into your identity from God?
Yeah. Honestly, God ripped it away. If I'm honest with you, when I went to Egypt, so to be honest, I was here on campus. People knew me because I played football. They saw me in pads on Saturday. Like I got a lot of respect because of that. And when I was away from that and around people that had no idea who I was or cared that I even played football, like I had an identity crisis. Like, well, wait a second. Like, you don't know what I've done, you know. So for me, it was being taken, realizing, oh, okay, that's going to fade away. That's kind of the point of God taking that, so I could see how important that was in my life, and I put that above who I am in Jesus. So, does that answer your question? Yes. Thank you. Mr. Ben.
So, like I just wanted you to cover something else, cover that area of when you said you left the GM job,
Yeah.
and then you went to Chick-fil-A. I think a lot of these young people, and you know me as well, right, everyone here, has went through or will go through a phase like that. Could you just like maybe dig in on the emotional side of that, of going from being messing with the top business people, and then going down to Chick-fil-A and then now serving them?
Yeah, I mean, the lowest point for me, honestly, was when I was out in the dining room, for whatever reason, but there was a group of guys that I would rub shoulders with, in the business world, and now I'm going over to wipe your table. And like, I was like, ugh, like what am I doing? And again, like had to say like Jake Serbian's an honor. 'Cause I believed it, but now I had to live it. And so that was it was a tough time. I mean, and here's why, to be honest, why I'm so indebted to Audra, my wife, because again, like I tell this story and I'm just like, she really followed me everywhere where we went. She was willing to go with me to all these different places, try these different things where I feel like God was leading us. And so, honestly, like without her, this wouldn't be possible because, again, she was just a constant support, but also, you know, I feel like if her and I were together, we were on the same page, like it didn't matter what was going to be thrown at us. And so, you know, and so extremely grateful for that. But that was, honestly, it was a time that I had to get away, and for 2 months, tried to figure out who I was, to be honest with you. And I asked that question, and in that, honestly, I didn't share it, but in those months, that's when I kind of created my own purpose statement for my personal Jake Schenk mission. And so, for me, this is why I believe God put me on earth. It was to lead and inspire others to be faithful with what God has given them, so ultimately they use their gifts to bring Him glory. And so that's why I feel like God put me on earth. And that was a process of years of trying to figure that out. And so, but that wouldn't have happened unless I stepped away and unless allowed that time for God to talk.
Okay. Being the owner of a business, you still catch yourself at times being married to that and not to Audrey and the
Yeah.
boys?
For sure. It is tough, and especially starting out, and some of my predisposed or my first inclination is to just put my head down and go. Like that's kind of how I'm wired, is there's a project or something that needs to be done, I'm just going to go. And I can do that for a long time and not necessarily come up for air. That I can just do and grind, but what I forget a lot of times is what damage is left behind and what I'm leaving behind when that happens. And sometimes that was family, for sure. And so, you know, I think part of the Fritz's adventure part was I was doing that. I was trying to build an adventure for other families, and I was leaving mine behind. And so that was tough. And so I had to come reconciliation with that and understanding that like it's not worth it for me. And so glad that God revealed that. So yeah, great question.
Hey, thanks for being here tonight. Again, thanks for the impact you've had on my life and people like me in college. Knowing what you know now, as someone who has experienced life, what would you tell a college age Jake?
I think I would say the faithfulness piece of like, learn to be faithful now. God has put people in your relationships and people around you that He's asking you to be faithful with. God's put tasks or He's asked you to grow in this area so that you can be prepared for what's next right now. And so what's funny is I also text 15 other business owners this same question. And so I shared some of those today with the class. And I'm just going to read, just give me a second here and I'll read one of those that I think encapsulates the whole thing. So the one of them said, here we go. Maybe I don't. Anyways, yeah, that's what I would say. I can't find it right now. What other questions? Well, thank you.